Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen, and here it is, the first video in a huge deep dive series for the year 1991. Now, these are albums from that year, and when I first thought about doing this, I thought about doing 91 albums from the year 1991. I thought that's going to be a lot, but you know, I'm going to stretch this out a couple of months. I'm going to listen to all these, and then I'm going to start uploading the videos. And then it turned into 100 albums, and then it turned into 120 albums. And now it's 140 albums from the year 1991, because I don't do half-ass on this channel for you. I do the whole ass, just so you know. In 1991, I was 17, 18 years old. I was, living at home with my parents. I had a disposable income. I started off the year working at Hardee's, flipping burgers, my very first job. Ended the year with a great job working at Blockbuster Video, and just had all this money, and it all went to either VHS tapes or CDs, or occasionally, gas to get back and forth to work, and maybe an oil change here and there, and maybe some clothes or something like that. But yeah, most of it CDs. And so it was a great year for me, and I just had a chance to go through and listen to all these albums that I have not heard in years and years. Some of them I was extremely familiar with. Some of them I've never heard before I started doing this. So I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to give too long of an introduction, because we've got 140 albums to get through here. And let's start off at the very, very bottom of the barrel. That's how a ranking works. Countdown, you start off with the absolute worst, and they just get better and better and better. So the absolute worst album I'm ranking, Toad the Wet Sprocket and Fear. It doesn't really get much worse than this for the year 1991, unless it's something that I didn't even bother listening to. Yeah, Toad the Wet Sprocket, jangle pop band, ridiculous, completely pretentious type of jangle pop. I don't like it. Some albums you put them on and they're terrible, but you don't kind of feel that terrible until like maybe a couple minutes in, maybe a couple songs in, and then you realize, man, this is terrible. This one, at least it lets you know right up front that it's awful. It started the ocean. The guy's whiny ass vocals with "Walk on the Water," and then had to play that a lot. And then what else is on here? That stupid "Hold Her Down" song, a song about, I can't even say that word on YouTube. Yeah, that's what it's about, and it's this, hold her down until she stops screaming. Hold her down until she stops kicking. Hey, they don't know her, but what the beep? Oh, they don't care. And we'll take back the night. Come on and take back the night. It's stealing a name of a group that helps victims for their little stupid jangle pop song. Just disgusting. I can just see some asshole flying down the road listening to that, singing along. What the hell? It's about a woman being, and the whole thing is that, it just makes me so mad that some guys act like that. That's like the theme of the song. But it's completely irreverent. It's totally like dismissed. It's a horrible band doing a horrible song on a horrible album. Here's an idea. If you're going to tackle a subject like in a song, maybe don't be a jangle pop band. What do you think? I think there's a couple other singles on here. That's all I want is to feel this way, to be there. Ugh, I just hate music like this, and this is the absolute worst. This is the kind of shit that you're at a party and some douchebag will pull out an acoustic guitar and he knows like 3 chords, and he'll start playing like he's a member of Toad the Wet Sprocket or something. And it's just like, dude, stop. That's enough. That chick over there likes it. Yeah, that chick over there thinks you've got weed, dude. So that's why she's... Just stop. Anyway, terrible. And it's at the very bottom of the list. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's move on to number 139. Another album, as we scrape the bottom of the barrel to start this whole series off, is from another band with a stupid name, Kik Tracee, and their album, No Rules! This is their only album, and they are, unfortunately for them, one of those kind of, you would call them a hair band now, or glam metal. It wasn't called that stuff back then, it was just called hard rock. We didn't call these bands hair bands when they were out. But it's 1991, that stuff is about to be drenched in maple syrup from grunge, And these guys, unfortunately, coming on board way too late in 1991. You can't come out with a debut album when you sound like this. Now, if you're a band that's had a few albums out at this point, like Kix or, Winger or, White Lion or something like that, you could almost get away with having an album like this in 1991. You can't make this your debut year if you sound like Kik Tracee. And it really just sounds kind of sad. But it is not a great album anyway. It's not anything great on here. The lead singer, Stephen Share Rowe or something, I don't know his name. He sounds like he's trying to imitate Axl Rose through the whole thing. Now, Axl Rose has a few different singing styles. He's going for the Mr. Brownstone Axl Rose. The, brands a waste of my time. Can't imitate Axl Rose, but that's the version of Axl Rose he's going for. And not pulling it off. The songs are very uninteresting. You got a freaking cover, track 2, of Simon and Garfunkel's Mrs. Robinson. It's awful. And I mean, I could give these guys the benefit of the doubt. Because, they probably played, I don't know their history, I don't care. But they probably played Sunset Strip for years. They thought they were going to be big. They finally get a record deal, and man, we got the Flying V. We're like Led Zeppelin and Def Leppard and Motley Crue, and we got the weird spelling for our name, and we got the clothes, and we got the hair, and what? Well, this ain't fair. How come we can't just drop a step? Man, it comes off like that. Very unmemorable, and except a couple of songs on here. Western Skies is the one where he really tries to go for the Axl Rose sound. There's another song on here called Tangerine Man. It's all homophobic, like this gay guy is hitting on him, and no, I'm not a Blue Oyster boy, get away from me. And, it's like, dude, that's pathetic. I mean, going for the teenage homophobia crowd, I mean, that's pitiful, man. And that's one thing you can't do. When you're one of these, like, hard rock 80s bands, you could be sleazy. That's my favorite. I love the sleazy stuff. Always liked it. Double entendres and all that. That's my lane with that stuff. You can be sleazy. You can be sexist. You can be misogynistic. You can be party animal. You can be over the top. You can be obnoxious. You can be goofy. But you can't be pitiful. And this just comes off as just pitiful. And, yeah, I'm done talking about it. Kik Tracee. No rules! Except for, there is one rule. Don't make your debut CD in 1991 if you're going to be a band that sounds like this. So some albums, you see the band name, you're not expecting much, like Toe the Wet Sprocket. I wasn't exactly disappointed with that. I knew the 3 singles, they were terrible, so I figured the whole album would be terrible. It is. But then there's albums where I didn't really know them a lot or didn't know them at all, and judging by the artist, it's like, oh, this will be interesting, and then you throw it on and it's not. And Gary Numan, unfortunately, is like that for his 1991 album called Outland. This is the one where he teams up with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and I'm not a big fan of their production. I mean, I think it works well, and if it's 1986 and it's Janet Jackson and it's new and fresh. But by the time 1991 comes around, I've heard way too much of that clunky, clanky drum sound, and they don't really change a lot with their production over 5, 6 years, 7, 8 years. And they didn't really do too much for Gary Numan. Now, I was really interested in his early stuff, especially with Two Boy Army. I love the way that he tells a story with the electronics. It's not just there. They actually have a purpose and a point. And it's to kind of tell the story of the robots are taking over, and I feel robotic and whatever, and I feel isolated, and I don't feel human. That the whole thing that he does with a lot of his songs. Gary Numan is, of course, known by most people as just the guy that does the song Cars. But so at this point, that's 11 years ago. We're in 1991 now. He hasn't had a hit in a while, and I think he probably teamed up with the super hot producers at the time to try to get a hit, and I don't think he did. He's trying to be funky. He's trying to be, in fact, there's a couple of songs on here that sound like a piece of You Got the Look from Prince, where he's like, closing time, ugly lights, everybody's inspected. There's the chorus of this song called Confession on this album that sounds just like that. And it pops up again on this From Russia Infected song. This na 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 and it's the same exact thing. So that was a little, it's like a little telling to hear that on here where he's going. And it just doesn't work for Gary Numan. It doesn't work with his kind of vocal. He's got that whole like weird kind of cracked vocal. Like I'm a strange that feel like I'm shaky and I'm unsure. And that doesn't work with like a funky kind of, it just doesn't work. That's the whole thing with the whole album. It doesn't work. There is one track on here called Dream, Killer, that actually sounds more like what you'd expect from Gary Numan. So that track sounds a little bit different than the rest of them. But when they bring in that funky late 80s, early 90s Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis production, and they put it with Gary Numan, it's like ice cream and pizza. It does not go together. And it's too bad, because I was wanting to explore some more Gary Numan, and this obviously is not the album to do that with. And now it's time to talk about Big Audio Dynamite II and the Globe. Yeah, this is Mick Jones, not the Foreigner guy, the Clash guy, doing another thing here, and this is a completely other thing. This is not the Clash continued. This is a completely different sound. And if you were a big fan of the Clash and you're like, oh, what's Mick Jones doing now with this Big Audio Dynamite? This must be explosive, man. This is gonna rock. And you got this CD and you listen to it all the way through, and you're like me, you were like, now, I'm not saying he should have done the exact same thing as the Clash. People like to change things up. I totally get it. But man, it didn't have to be that bad. The two songs off here that were big at the time were Rush and then the title song, The Globe. I had only heard, I think, maybe The Globe when this came out, and got this CD thinking, well, maybe all the songs don't sound that bad. Maybe there's some rock stuff on here. Maybe there's some really gritty stuff on here. You know, no. This is samples and back, drum machines and rapping. Dude on here like, here we go. Dude, you're not cool. Just stop. Song on here, Rush. I mean, that's like a rush for the change of atmosphere. And then this like monologue from this, I don't know, instructional record or something comes on. It's like, we're trying to party here. I mean, if this is supposed to be a party album, what are you doing stopping the song for like 40 seconds and doing some voiceover stuff? This is not good. I'm sorry, this is not good. Why am I apologizing? I don't have to apologize for this. It's not good. There's people who like this, I guess. Okay, whatever. It's not very good. Yeah, it just sucks. Let's be honest. Big Audio Dynamite 2. Another thing they do on here. No, I'm not done bitching, as a matter of fact. Because another thing they do on that Globe song is they sample the guy yelling from the Clash, should I stay or should I go? Like, woo! And they go, woo! Bless you. Woo! Bless you. Woo! Bless you. Like saying that he sounds like he's sneezing or something, like making fun of their history. It's like, dude, most people would rather hear the Clash than this shit. So you make fun of it if you want to, but it still sucks. Now here's one that I remember being disappointed when I very first got this. This is Play, the album from Squeeze that came out in 1991. And I remember getting this CD for 99 cents in probably around 1992. I didn't have any Squeeze albums or CDs or tapes at the time, so I thought I needed to get one because, I knew a couple of their songs. And so I saw this for 99 cents, and at that time it was their latest album. I thought, oh, okay, I'll pick this one up, and threw it on and was like, yeah, I don't need to get any more Squeeze. So I think that's why it took so long to get any more Squeeze albums. I didn't get any more until like the last 2 or 3 years or whatever. So this has probably had something to do with that. Not a great album at all. Very first song is called Satisfied, and that's what it sounds like. It sounds like a very contented group who feels like they just don't even have to try anymore. This is phoned in music, basically. The second song, Crying in My Sleep, I mean, just the drum sound on that just is very thin, terrible sound for the drums. By the way, as far as personnel, no Jules Holland on this. He has departed at this point. But yeah, not great. It sounds like they're just not trying very hard. It's very, very phoned in. It goes beyond just being, bland pop music. This is getting into more like Michael Bublé land, where it's just like this, just completely pedestrian, boring, just nothing burger of music. It's just impotent. That's what it is. This album's like trying to shoot pool with a rope. It's impotent. That's the best way I can describe this. I did remember when I did the review of James Griffith's book that he wrote about Squeeze. I don't think he talked very much about this release. I don't remember that at all. But yeah, just not a great album at all. There's one song on here. Well, Sunday Street was another hit. That's, one of those silly songs where it's about Monday this is happening and Tuesday this and I can't wait for Sunday, and not very good at all. Wicked and Cruel is probably the most fully realized song on here, but by the time that comes on track 11, it's already too late. You've already wasted too much of my time, Squeeze. And yeah, like Wicked and Cruel, most of the songs on here are just your typical male-female relationship songs, and they're satisfied with their relationship, and they're so satisfied that it's dull. And then in the next one, it's a breakup song, and the relationship's gotten so sour and gone boring. And it's like, yeah, this whole album's boring. So can't recommend Squeeze and their Play album. I didn't know much about Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark outside of their couple of big hits. Of course, the huge one was the If You Leave song from Pretty in Pink. And other than that, I knew maybe a couple of other tracks, but this one I didn't know too much about at all. The 1991 album Sugar Tax. So I'm hearing this one for the first and second time, and starts off pretty strong. It's got a song called Sailing the Seven Seas with this beat, and very hooky. And right away I'm like, wow, this isn't too bad. Wow, see what the rest of this sounds like. Now this is Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark was basically two guys, Paul Humphreys and Adam McCluskey. And at this point, Paul Humphreys is gone. It's just Adam McCluskey, and so he's doing the vocals and I guess the arranging of the music and everything. And by the third track, it's becoming apparent that this is kind of a really light affair. And by halfway through the album, I'm realizing that whole great first track was sort of an anomaly, and the rest of the album is definitely not living up to that promise. Now, there is a little bit of a bounce back. The energy comes back up with a track called Speed of Light, which sounds like a basic club song, could be the Pet Shop Boys or something like that. But then it goes right back down into this very, very generic synth thing. It sounds like somebody just turned on a Casio keyboard and just hit demo on some of these songs. I mean, there's really not a lot there. There's a track called Was It Something I Said, where, singing with this very emotional, pleading vocals. And in the back, it's just this really light synth, kind of nondescript stuff going on. And it really kind of undermines any kind of emotion that the vocals might have. If you remember the song, if you're only familiar with the song If You Leave, you know how when he starts getting more passionate towards the end of the song, the music also comes up and becomes more passionate. Even though it's still basically synth pop, it's still got more going on. This is not like that. This is some passionate vocals in a couple of tracks, and the music just lays there flat. In other tracks, the music and the vocals and the lyrics are all just kind of, nah. There's a final track in here, All That Glitters Is Not Gold, no matter what you've been told. I mean, just cliches. And yeah, I don't know if Paul Humphreys was, I don't know that much about the dynamics of those two. I don't know if Paul Humphreys was the guy who did a lot of the music arranging, and Adam McCluskey's the guy that did the lyrics. But it seems like the music has just been abandoned, and it's just very, very generic and very forgettable. Of course, when it's synth pop, it's generic and forgettable. It's even more so generic and forgettable because it's not even a band playing it. It's just this light nonsense. And speaking of nonsense, where this goes from being a sort of average, below average, forgettable album, with the exception of the first track, when it goes from being that to being a bad album, is this song called Apollo 11. It's not even really a song, it's a track called Apollo 11. Now, Apollo 11 is where man landed on the moon, and where all those sound bites come from, that's one small step for man, that whole thing. So that's all this is just a very just basic synth track with that's one small step for man, one giant leap, one giant leap, one giant leap. What? That one small step, one small step. in the news broadcast, something like, the first time, first time. I don't know what the exact words are, but it's that nonsense. It's this shit that I can't stand, where it's like this Arthur Baker type. We're going to take a sentence and just keep repeating 2 words out of it over and over again. I don't know why that was ever a thing to begin with. I don't know why it stayed around for over a decade. I don't know why Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark are doing it. They're a band that at this point have been around for like a decade, putting out all these albums. They should be past this shit at this point. And their music should be a lot fuller, more realized, more memorable, something you can sink your teeth into, even though it is synth pop. It should have a little more going on at this point. This sounds like somebody just, like I said, like somebody just picked up a keyboard and learned how to play it, and we're just going to come up with really basic things to do on it. That Apollo 11, though, made this whole experience just that much worse and terrible. And that's why this thing was going to be kind of a mid and went down to this part of the rankings. So yeah, cannot recommend Sugar Tax from Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark. Maybe if there's just a single for the first track about the seas, I would recommend that. But the rest of this is just absolute throwaway. All right, the shits keep coming as we are at the towards the bottom of the list of the albums I'm ranking from 1991, and Driving and Crying, Fly Me Courageous. Whiny vocals, weak vocals throughout. I don't know if this is supposed to be their thing, like maybe they've got the tender approach to 80s rock. And this, I say 80s rock because that's what this sounds like. It sounds like 1988 or 89, even though it's 1991. I think this is these guys' second or third album, or somewhere around, maybe it's their fourth, I don't know. But definitely used to play the Fly Me Courageous, the title track, on the radio all the time. I never understood why that was popular. I didn't like it back then. The guitar riff, the do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, sounds like the first part of Ray Charles' What'd I Say, just over and over again. Whiny vocal, like, Mother America is brandishing her weapons. She keeps me warm tonight with threats and misconceptions. Why would you sing like that? Why would you like someone singing like that? I never understoed why people like that song, and I never really heard the rest of the album until I'm doing this. And yeah, the whole thing is just, that's like one of the better songs on there, actually. The whole thing is whiny, and there's even a song on here, I think it's For You, where he's got, I've got a crush on you. It sounds like somebody's little brother started a rock band or something, and you're there, and guys, come over and just sit in the garage and just do me a favor and watch my little brother's band. He wants people. It gives me that kind of a feeling, like this is somebody's little brother's band. I don't get the popularity of these guys. I get why somebody would want to strut around, whatever, hard rock. That's fine. I love it, but not the Driving and Crying. And what kind of name is that? I mean, that tells you what you need to know. They have crying in their band name. So are we ready to talk about the band live? And this is, I think this is their debut, Mental Jewelry. I won this CD from a record store. It was Camelot Music in the mall, and they were having some contest or whatever where you had those punch cards. You spent enough money, you get a punch, and then you get it filled up. You get like a percentage off. Well, they were having a contest too where if you had one of those, I don't even think you had to have it filled up. You got your name in a drawing or whatever, and they gave you a free CD, which, by the way, I think is a lottery, which is not legal in the state of Illinois unless you're a commissioned lottery. You're not supposed to be able to have contests where someone pays for a chance. But basically, if you have that card punched, you've paid for something, and that was the only way you could enter the contest. I could have sued and owned that store. But anyway, live Mental Jewelry. Yeah, I'm not a fan of live, just pretentious nonsense. That Throwing Copper album with all those songs I had to play over and over again. My God, those were terrible. That stupid, what was the, I alone love you, I alone him. So I think the people would call that gaslighting today, where you tell somebody that I'm the only one that loves you, and that's supposed to be a love song. That was on there. You had the one where her placenta falls to the floor. Lightning crash. That was laughable, is what that was. And what was the one about the Toad the Wet Sprocket? Oh, what was it called? Selling the Drama, where it's like, hey, now we won't be scarred like that. Hey, now we won't be hey, hey, saying the word, singing the word in the chorus of a pop song with 4 notes. What? Is anybody going to have any kind of seriousness with this subject? And you can't, if you're like somebody who writes serious songs that's like a edgier band, not a pop band. Stop it. There are women who have actually gone through that, by the way, that probably don't want to hear songs rolling down the road with that in the chorus, singing pop like the Rembrandts or something. Just, anyway, none of those are on this album. This is first. They're younger here. They're from York, Pennsylvania, the home of the Peppermint Patty, and they're going to sing about changing the world and overcoming, and how horrible organized religion is and all this kind of stuff and racial issues and strife and struggle and all of that, which is great. That's fine. Definitely sing about those. But, they just come off as very, I don't know, kind of awkward and naive or something, I guess would be the word in this particular album, which is like a couple of years before the Throwing Copper, so they're even younger here. Really tight band though. They do a pretty good job with the music, and it's produced by Jerry Harrison of Talking Heads, so the sonic quality is really good. And like I said, they're a pretty good band. Hey, too bad about the lyrics and the lead singer and his obnoxious voice, but other than that, it's pretty good. Maybe you can run it through one of those things where you turn off the vocals, and it might be a pretty good CD. But yeah, as long as it's got all those vocals and all those lyrics, yeah, no thanks. But this one I can actually listen to more than the Throwing Copper, just because I haven't heard these songs a million times. And the naive lyrics and the kind of the ridiculous vocals, it's actually kind of cute on here in a kind of a innocent kind of way, because I don't know, it's kind of cute. To quote a famous doctor, this album has a certain naive charm, but no muscle. But yeah, we're going to change the world and whatever, and yet we can't keep 4 friends from York, Pennsylvania together without suing each other. That's live, and we're moving on. Yes, I'm doing a lot of complaining about these albums, and it's all very negative, but keep in mind this is a ranking of 140 albums, so they do get better. They will get better later on. But right now it's time to talk about Book of Love and their sort of concept album, Candy Carol, which was supposed to be, from what I understand, like a Christmas feeling type of album that wasn't really Christmas songs. And that's a really interesting concept. I don't know how that would work. Usually if an artist has a Christmas album and they have traditional Christmas songs, and then they have new songs that are that somebody wrote for the album that are Christmas songs, you usually just skip over those and go with the traditional ones. There are exceptions, obviously, like Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas, and Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas, Wham's Last Christmas, where somebody will come out with a new Christmas song and it actually becomes a classic. But usually those are just skippable tracks, that you forget about. But back to Book of Love. This definitely starts off sounding like a Christmas album. The intro talks about caroling and angels. I mean, caroling, that's exclusively Christmas. And then the last track, the title track, Candy Carol, has some Christmas elements in there too. Again, caroling, of course, is Christmas. Those two kind of work. They're okay. I mean, Book of Love is a kind of a cold, synthy type of band. When Christmas comes around, I think most people want to hear the warmth of Christmas songs, whether it be traditional ones that they've heard since their childhood, bringing back great memories, or the newer ones that work, like I said, like Last Christmas or whatever. These all sound very cold, though. Even when they're singing about butterflies and sunny days, it still all sounds very synthy, cold, whatever, for Christmas time. And the thing about this album is, like I said, the first couple tracks, the intro and the second track, and then the last track, kind of work with the concept. It's everything in between that doesn't work. Everything in between is annoying. It sounds like children's songs more than it sounds like Christmas songs. It's very, very sing-songish, like candy-colored, sugar-coated, orange flip, orange flip. It's like that almost all the way through with different songs. And just kind of like, it sounds more like a children's album that they're trying to do, which maybe if you're a parent or something of a child and you really are into synth music from the late 80s or whatever, and Book of Love, and you want to have an album that your child can appreciate, maybe you would play this for them if they were like 3 years old or something, because it's all this like, it's like listening to the Wiggles or something. It kind of goes into just a little bit of a psychedelic feeling on, like I said, like the first couple tracks in the last one. It doesn't do that in the middle. It's all just this really annoying, synthy, children's sounding music, and it's just bad. I think this would work better if like the title track or the second song were featured on a compilation of Christmas songs, and that one of those was just thrown in. You could appreciate it, but this whole album as a whole, no. No. And the thing was, it's supposed to have this Christmas aesthetic. You can see from the cover, it looks, they're in a snow globe and everything. It's called, Candy Carol. I mean, it was released in January. So how would you like to be working for the record label trying to promote this? Like, hey, we got a Christmas-themed, not Christmas album from Book of Love. And, it's January, though. Well, but what had happened was, that would have been an impossible job. I don't know why you would release this in January. I don't think it did anything. Book of Love is known for like 2 or 3 songs on other albums, not this one. And I absolutely do not recommend this for Christmas or any other time unless you're just going to skip right to the last track. The 1991 album from Foreigner is called Unusual Heat, and I had never heard this album before I started making this project of this series of videos with this countdown, but I do remember this coming out, and I remember this going right to the bargain bin. I'm checking this out, I'm throwing it on for the first time. I don't recognize any of these song titles. This has got no hits on it, and I'm thinking, man, Lou Gramm is kind of keeping it in a little bit, He's not, where's the soaring vocals? And I realize, oh, wait. That's not Lou Gramm. That's a new singer they got. His name is Johnny Edwards, and he was with King Cobra. He was with Montrose for an album called Mean in 1987. I don't think that did very much. But he's been with a couple bands here and there, and now he's the lead singer of Foreigner. And it's too bad for him that he didn't have some better material to work with, and it wasn't released a little earlier than 1991, because these guys it's a basic rock album is what this is. There's no real character. There's nothing familiar here. Like, oh man, the awesome vocals of Lou Gramm. There's not that songwriting. There's not those catchy, immediate, songs. It's just a lot of really, really basic stuff. And a band like Foreigner, they should be past that at this point. They've already come out with I Want to Know What Love Is and kind of expanded their whole audience. And, they still got the rock crowd. They got the new pop people that are into I Want to Know What Love Is. And on this, it's just all straightforward rock stuff. Low Down and Dirty, I guess, was the single. I don't remember it at all. They got a couple of ballads on here. The keyboards start coming in about halfway through. You're like, where's the keyboards? Yeah, well, there they are. About halfway through, they got a couple of ballads on here. Safe in My Heart and When the Night Comes Down. I don't know why they didn't release one of those as a single and put it right to Light Rock Radio. That probably would have done better than them trying to still be this hard rock band. But yeah, just kind of there, just kind of, Foreigner, Unusual Heat. Now I remember it coming out, I remember it going straight to the bargain bin, and now I've officially heard it. Do you remember the band Jawbox? They had a couple of albums out in the 90s. I believe that Grip was their first, maybe their second. I think it was their first, though. Just check this out again after not hearing this probably since the early 90s. And I like some of their later stuff when they moved over to a major label. This is Discord, and it's okay. It's just kind of there. It's kind of meh. Lead singer, his voice is always up here in this register. He kind of sounds on some of the songs like Greg Graffin from Bad Religion. Not quite, kind of, some of the songs. But a lot of it sounds the same. It's got kind of like an emo type of thing going on, early version of that. Not the screaming stuff, but the more of the just like, I'm kind of doing a self-check in most of the songs, talking about, how I need to fix me, that kind of thing. And it just sounds really kind of meh all the way through. They kind of sound like, remind me of like what a basement bar opening act would sound like. Like you're going to the basement bar. In St. Louis, it was a place called Cicero's. Awesome basement bar. Saw all kinds of great early 90s bands there. A lot of great memories, but you would have that opening band that was kind of unmemorable, and just they were passable. They weren't awful. They were just kind of there, and that's what Jawbox kind of reminds me of. They're not horrible. There's nothing you can point out and go, my God, this is awful. Or there's nothing you can point out and go, wow, this is incredible. It's just kind of all just kind of there. And when you listen to the entire thing all the way through, I mean, for myself anyway, start getting bored around halfway through. And then by like track 8 or 9, you're like, all right, I really kind of wish we'd be done with this. And so it's just kind of there. In 1991, the band Yes had a different lineup, and part of Yes had split up at that time into another group called Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe, and they had a couple of albums out. Now in 91, they decided to all get back together and configure this new version of Yes, along with Trevor Rabin, Chris Squire, Alan White, and just all get together and make this album called Union, which is not a great album. It's definitely not 1971 anymore, and so they've still trying to do their prog thing. They're getting away from the Owner of a Lonely Heart, Leave It kind of 1983 when they made that big comeback. They're getting away from that sound, but they still have a late 80s type of sound, but they're trying to do more of a prog rock thing with longer songs, more bold arrangements, big changes in the music and different songs and time signatures and all that kind of stuff that comes with prog rock. It's just not very interesting. They just don't do very well at it. I don't think there's a lot of passion in this. From what I've read over the years, these guys did not get along during this. You have basically two camps coming together with material that they'd already done in their own individual groups and mixing it all together. And there was all kinds of infighting and disagreements. And sometimes that makes for great albums. Sometimes you have infighting and disagreements and everybody's trying to show everybody up, so it brings up the level of quality because everybody doesn't want to be slacking because they want to show you. No, I'll show you. Oh yeah, well, I'll show you. It's not like that though. It's just a lot of people, I think, just getting frustrated. So you've got the songs from the Anderson, Bruford, Wakeford, Howe band combining with what was then Yes, coming together. And so the Yes songs are in the middle of the album, basically, for the most part. There's one that kind of breaks it up. But the Yes songs are generally more intense. They have a song on there called Lift Me Up, where you can tell they're kind of going for, let's get on rock radio with this. It's definitely one of the better parts of the album. I mean, there are flashes of highlights on this album. Part of the beginning of Lift Me Up, you've got Walking On, the riff of that, the chorus of that's kind of a highlight. So there's little flashes here and there. But one of the things that I noticed is there's just a lot of seemingly discombobulated parts of songs. Like Lift Me Up, for instance, it starts off with like 3 completely different parts. And I get it, progressive rock is all about changes in music and changes in mood and switching things up in the same song. But there's always, kind of a flow to it or a purpose or, an overall meaning to why you're doing that. Here it just sounds like, okay, we've done this for 45 seconds. Let's change it into this. Okay, it doesn't seem like it all flows together or goes together. It just seems like I said, like discombobulated pieces of things. And some of it's great and some of it's not great and some of it's just kind of forgettable, and it doesn't lend itself to being memorable at all. And I've listened to this a couple of times. I heard it back in the early 90s and listened to it a couple of times again for this video series, and as soon as you listen to it, you've forgotten what you've heard. But there's nothing else like, oh man, I got to go back and check out that one part again, or oh yeah, that one song, really like that. It didn't strike me that way at all. Just some bad stuff is what I remember. Like the song "Without Hope, You Cannot Start the Day." That's one of the low points, where the chorus is something like, "I can see it must be love, must be love, must be love, must be." So it's that kind of nonsense. And it's one of those things where there's all of these cooks in the kitchen. There's like 10 different engineers for every song, and it's just way overwrought and kind of a forgettable Yes album. I think most Yes fans would not point to this as part of their top 10 favorite Yes albums. Of course, somebody's probably going to put in the comment, yes, it actually is my favorite Yes album of all time. Oh my God, it's the greatest. But most Yes fans would not put this in their top 5 or probably top 10. All right, who's ready for some White Lion in 1991? And their album is called Main Attraction. It is a long album, too. Starts off with an 8.5-minute ambitious epic called Lights and Thunder. It's like, all right, calm down, people. It's a White Lion album. We don't need 8-minute starts. It's got some decent guitar work in it, but it's all about, I'm going to take you to a place where there's no lying and no dying and no crying and no religion and no God to bow to or whatever. Where exactly are we going? It starts off sounding like he's going to take you to have like the Staples singers. He's going to take you to this wonderful place. It's heaven. But then he says there's no religion and no God and no hell. So what? I don't know where we're going in that song, but it's got some decent guitar work at the very beginning of it, but it is 8.5 minutes long and definitely overstays its welcome. We are right into a power ballad after that, Broken Heart. And this will not be the only power ballad on this album. It is loaded with them, and they usually have very simplistic, cliched lyrics. You're all I need rhymes heart with apart and world with girl. And then you got one later on called It's Over. That's, I think, the very next track, actually, that also rhymes heart with apart. And it's just like, you just scribbled these down and just come up with some cliches, and we're just going to throw it on an album. And so, yeah, I mean, just more power ballads. You got this one called Till Death Do We Part later on in the album, which is all about, you know, obviously they're trying to have the official 80s hair band wedding song, because it's all about, I'm getting married, I love you, till death do us part, you know, in sickness and in health, you know, and all that. So yeah, I don't think that became an official wedding song. I haven't been to too many weddings, but I've never been to one where that's played. Maybe you have. Let me know in the comments. You know, White Lion helping you get to second base since 1986. But yeah, there's another song on here called She's Got Everything, where it sounds like Bon Jovi pitched up a little bit. So they're trying that little thing. They even got that talkbox vocoder, wow, 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 like Living on a Prayer. They're trying to bring that back again. And yeah, just a lot of cliches, a lot of ballads, a lot of just, it's the kind of 1991 album where if you weren't around at the time, you can listen to this and then you might understand, oh, that's why grunge became so popular so quickly. It's because of albums like White Lion's Main Attraction, just loaded with power ballads and long songs that don't need to be long, and long albums, and just whiny vocals, and it's not great. And so that's going to wrap up the first segment of my video series counting down 140 albums from the year 1991. Please keep in mind that this was the worst. The reviews and the albums will be getting better and better, but this was the bottom. These were the worst of the ones I listened to. There's probably worse albums from 1991, but these are the worst of the 140 that I checked out. And I really appreciate you checking this video out, and I hope that you will continue with me on this journey as I release the rest of the videos and the countdown continues. I just want to do something completely over the top and excessive for the end of the year. I know a lot of people are doing year-end countdowns, so I thought I would do one as well, except for my year, instead of being the current year, is the year of 1991. So once again, I'm Robert Fithen, and thank you so much for watching. And again, I hope you continue with me on this 1991 video journey.